Welcome to Life Group and welcome to the Covenant with Israel. We've been digging into these covenants and now we're here in the Covenant with Israel. And when I was a kid, my grandparents had these bookshelves in their living room, and on the bookshelf in their living room was this statue, this kind of scary looking statue of a bearded, muscular man with horns on his head, and on this side he's got some tablets and he's sitting on a big block of stone, and it's kind of a scary looking statue. And it wasn't till later in life that I came to an understanding that this is not a scary looking statue. In fact, this is a replica of a statue carved by Michelangelo that's in Rome, of Moses. This is a statue of Moses, and in Rome, it's a giant statue of Moses, and we get this picture of Moses in Exodus 34, where Moses is given a set of new tablets, and you've been looking at this. And when he comes down from the mountain, the ESV translation says that his face is shining because of the glory of God reflecting and bouncing off of him because he's been in fellowship with God. And in the original Latin translation, which is what which Michelangelo would have been working with, that passage says Moses' head was horned instead of shining. And so we get this picture of Moses' horned head. But before we can get to this point where Moses is renewing the covenant with Israel and getting this new set of tablets, we have to understand what's been going on. We have the covenant with Noah, where God in his graciousness sets aside his judgment for a time so that salvation can take place. We have the covenant with Abraham, where God lays out these promises made to Abraham that Abraham, your family is going to be great, that your family is going to have this section of land to dwell in and to live in, the promised land, and that through your family, Abraham, the whole world, all of the nations of the world will be blessed through you. And so in these promises, God is revealing his plan for salvation is going to come through this family of Abraham, and that God is making it clear that it's going to happen through him. And then we get to this covenant with Israel, but Israel is now a nation, and it's Abraham's family. Abraham had a son named Isaac, and Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Esau. And Jacob had 12 sons, and the 12 sons of Jacob became the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's name was changed to Israel later on in his life, and now we have the 12 tribes of Israel. And the story of one of those sons getting sold into slavery, Joseph getting sold into slavery in Israel or into Egypt, is how the nation of Israel becomes enslaved by the Egyptians. And they spend hundreds of years in enslavement in Egypt. And as they're there, their nation grows and grows and grows. And eventually, God, through Moses, frees them from their enslavement in Egypt. They come and they cross the Red Sea, and we know that story. Pharaoh's army is chasing after them. Moses leads the nation of Israel across the Red Sea, and now they are in the wilderness, headed towards the promised land. It's not a fast journey, it's a slow journey, and I think it's a slow journey for a reason. It's so that God can, in this covenant with Israel, show them how they can live in relationship with him. And it starts very simply with the nation of Israel gathering at the base of Mount Sinai and Moses going up and receiving the summary of what it looks like to live in relationship with God, the 10 Commandments. God makes this covenant with the nation of Israel. And he gets the 10 Commandments, this summary picture of what it looks like to be in relationship with God. And over time, the nation of Israel, they fail miserably at following these commandments that God has given him. And God, over time, in this wilderness journey, reveals more and more of what it looks like to be in relationship with Israel. And he tells them this: you will be my people, and I will be your God. And I saved you from the Egyptians, not because of anything that you've done, but because of who I am and my great love for you. And so if you're going to be my people and I am your God, here are the stipulations. You need to live like you are my people. Bring glory to my name. And he gives them the 10 Commandments, this summary picture. Keep this covenant. Keep this picture of what it looks like to live in relationship with God. If you keep this covenant, curse or blessings will come upon you. Blessings will come upon you. And then if you don't keep these curses or keep these commandments, this plan of what it looks like to be in relationship with God, curses will come. And we see that play out where the nation of Israel is successful in following what God asks them to do. God blesses their efforts. God blesses what they're doing. When the nation of Israel turns their back on God and goes their own way, curses come upon them, even to the point of exile, of leaving the land that God promised them because they are not following what God has for them. And so the purpose of this covenant is not a purpose or a covenant that tells the people of Israel how they can come to be in relationship with God for all time. It is teaching them how to learn to live in relationship with God, but at the same time, it's helping them realize that they cannot do it on their own. There is no way that humanity can live up to be in right relationship with God on their own. And so they need a Savior. And so this covenant with Israel is not meant to be a forever covenant where for all time this is the only way that salvation can happen. It's a covenant meant to help people understand and help us understand that we can't do it on their own. And so there are parts of this covenant that fade away when Christ comes on the scene. Because Christ has fulfilled this covenant. He's fulfilled the law, and he's made a way for salvation to happen. The covenant with Israel helps us recognize our need for a Savior. And so in this runway, in this pathway leading up to the point of Jesus and leading up to eternity with him, we get this picture of God setting aside his judgment, showing us his graciousness, God revealing his promises and his plan to Abraham, and God keeping his promises in the covenant with Israel, but also making it abundantly clear that Israel cannot do it on their own and that we cannot do it on our own. We need a Savior, and that Savior is Jesus. And so my hope is in your reading, you come to an understanding that God's great love for us leads to Jesus. That it leads to Jesus, and it opens your heart wide to when you read these passages to see Jesus throughout all of the Old Testament. One of my favorite parts of this covenant that we've been reading this week is in Exodus chapter 34, where Moses received the first tablets and destroyed them when Israel failed immediately to follow the 10 Commandments. And after a time, Moses goes back up on the mountain and asks God to give him the commandments again, and God does, and Moses gets to hear God's name from God's own mouth. And in verse 6 it says this: the Lord passed before Moses, and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, and forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. We get God's name, merciful and gracious, and we've seen that play out in these covenants, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. That's true of our God. He is slow to his anger. He abounds in his love, and his faithfulness, his promises are true for all time. And he keeps love for his people. But there's a reality that if we don't turn to him if we don't look to him for our salvation, the cost of our sin is real. And we saw that in the covenant with Noah. And so God, in his revealing of these covenants, is revealing who he is and how we can be in relationship with him. And it's a beautiful thing. Through Noah, God starts the path. Through Abraham, he sets out the promises of what this path to salvation is going to look like. And through the covenant with Israel, God reveals what it looks like to be in relationship with him and helps us to understand that we can't do it on our own. And eventually, he sends us a Savior in the person of Jesus Christ. My prayer this week is that God opens your heart wide to his great plan of salvation. And it's revealed to you through these covenants. Take time this week to read these passages out loud in your group. Discuss them. Pray over them. Pray for one of each other this week. And my prayer is that you have a wonderful time doing it. God bless you. Thank you so much. Dig in.